Fiat currencies, love them or hate them, they are the way the world works, and they are an integral part of how our society operates. Are they a dying breed though? Are they going to become a thing of the past? Will gold or even silver actively replace them in a monetary form? Probably not, but they are integral to help protect your wealth over time. And in today's video, I want to talk about the connection between gold, silver, and fiat currencies. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a very warm welcome to you all joining me for this week's Precious Metal Rambling, which is going to be all about fiat currencies, their role in the modern world, and how they relate to gold and silver, and why I still think it is incredibly important to have some gold and silver in the eventuality that your currency does hyperinflate away to nothing. If that happens, will we see a return to using this stuff here? I've got a bunch of little fractional pieces that I've made. Will we go back to having actual silver coins that we pay for things in shops in a modern world? My argument would probably be a no for that. But I do think that having this stuff, having gold, having silver for a time when the currency goes, will be the only thing that gives you some form of security into whatever would replace it at the other end. And let's be quite honest, most of the time, certainly throughout history, when these kind of things have failed, when fiat currencies have failed, they are replaced by other fiat currencies. It seems that we cannot help ourselves. But is there a reason for that? In a strange way, fiat currencies actually work. So bear with me as we go throughout the video. If you are enjoying what I have to say, then please do put a thumbs up on this video and share it around on your social media, especially if you're enjoying this wonderful folder I have here of old banknotes. Some are new as well, but old banknotes, absolute wonders of history. And, you know, ultimately, a lot of the notes that you're seeing in here are from currencies that have completely disappeared. And one of the things that a lot of people say is that fiat currencies, they always go to zero. That's not technically true because we have, of course, some fiat currencies currently in existence, some that have been around for hundreds of years. The pound is the shining example amongst the rest that they can last, and that, you know, depending on the society, depending on the economy of a particular country and its strength, of course, some of these fiat currencies can last forever. And ultimately, these are just they're just barter tokens that people attribute value to. You know, you take your $20 bill down to the shops or your £10 note down to the shops, and you are very, very sure at the moment in your mind that you'll be able to exchange that for goods, and then the person who takes it off you will be able to exchange it for things that they want, and that's exactly what this stuff is for. It's practical. Now, I've talked in the past about the utility of physical cash these days and how that is on the decline, and we're now using bank cards and automated machines to just basically simplify our lives so that we don't have these banknotes, which ultimately is a good thing. I think, you know, to have them, all of sort of currencies digitized rather than physical stuff, physical things, is in my opinion much better. It's much safer, it's much more secure. Obviously, walking down the street with a secure debit card or a phone that pays for things that people can't necessarily easily just steal and use all your money. Cash, once it's stolen, once it's lost, it's gone. That is it. That is not necessarily a good thing to have. But ultimately, this stuff here is all just paper. It's just, well, often it's not actually paper, it's cotton, but it is stuff that we just attribute value to, and we think that it will give us the stock that we want at the other end of an exchange. But as our currencies start to devalue over time, it is quite interesting to see what is there in the background to replace it. Now, there are a few modern examples of countries whose currencies hyperinflate away to nothing: Zimbabwe and Venezuela. I'm not sure I've got any. I've got some Zimbabwean. Here we go. Here's a great example. Great, I was on the right page. Reserve of Zimbabwe, $10. Now, there are some banknotes flying out there of $100 trillion or something. You know, Zimbabwe's currency completely collapsed to absolutely nothing. And of course, if you had cash in the bank, it would be literally worthless, If you had these banknotes stuffed in a mattress in your bedroom, completely worthless. You'd have to have a wheelbarrow full of them to even get what you wanted. But this stuff here, gold and silver, and it was very much evident in the times of the hyperinflation in Zimbabwe. Obviously, I wasn't there; I don't know firsthand, but you see all of the different, evidence that comes out during and after the fact that people were literally panning for gold to get specks of gold to be able to go and cash that in and then be able to buy things. People would move away from the Zimbabwean dollar. They would not use it. They would just go to other currencies out there as well. It's quite fascinating, isn't it, that you get a fiat currency that's failing, a fiat currency that's completely collapsing. And for the vast majority of people out there, they would jump straight to the US dollar, the pound, the euro, other currencies around the world. Most of the time, though, it was just a case of absolute struggle and hardship for people to even get the food that they might need to survive. And it's not a scenario which is something that anybody really wants or should advocate for. In fact, I made a video last week about how a lot of the calls right now to crash the dollar or to continue the move to crash the dollar just because stick it to the bankers, that it's just absolutely ridiculous that people don't necessarily understand the absolute brown storm, for a YouTube monetization friendly phrase, that will be out there on that side of things. But what's the alternative? Can we actually use silver and gold as currency anymore in this modern world? Got here a bunch of little fractional pieces which I've been making up over the last couple of days. They're just a little bit of fun. They're really not meant as anything like that. I called them my backyard bullion apocalypse barter tokens. Got some 1 gram, 2 gram, 3 gram little bits of silver in here, which I've hammered flat. Really interesting, really cool stuff. And a lot of people do hold a lot of stock into fractional pieces of silver, simply because if we do get hyperinflation, if we do get the dollar going to $1,000 an ounce silver, a single gram of silver would be worth $30. And having an ounce of that stuff is going to be almost unobtainium, of course. And people are not, average people will not be able to get that. And it's important to remember the averages here, because whilst we are all very, very keen on our gold and silver, if you're watching this, you're probably watching because you've got or you're interested in precious metals. But for the vast majority of people, for the Joe Blog average out there, the simple idea of owning gold or silver is alien to them. They don't necessarily think about it or even aspire to it or consider it. And to a certain extent, I have a bit of pity for those people, because ultimately, if there is a situation where you get hyperinflation and a currency does completely go to zero and fail, they're not going to have anything except the physical things that they have in their life. And what I mean by that is houses, cars, things that other people might need, even as simple as clothes or things that are already in your possession are things that people give value to. There are a lot of things, though, in people's possessions that people don't give value to, and it's a whole minefield of what is actually desirable and not. And when push comes to shove, unfortunately, the latest iPhone gadget is not going to be something which is really worth a lot of money. If you get a complete apocalyptic scenario, nobody's going to want that. They're going to want antibiotics. They want to have food, water, clean water, medicines. The only other thing that they will want is something that they can barter with to get that stuff. So in an apocalyptic scenario, yes, there could be a return to physical gold and silver, these kind of things being used. And these are meant as a little bit of a kind of gimmicky item, something a little bit fun, something a little bit different. There is a market for fractional stuff out there. It is what it is. I'm not necessarily going to mass manufacture these kind of things, but thought it would be nice to show them as an example. But the biggest strange thing that I can foresee, and the most likely thing, in fact, I think I can foresee as well, is if we do have a situation where currencies completely hyperinflate away, ultimately, the only thing that will save you is gold and silver, simply because governments will most likely replace whatever is there, whatever is hyperinflated away. They will reset. They will go back to a new norm. We've seen it in different countries all around throughout history. All you've got to do is look at Germany in the 1920s. Their currency hyperinflated away to nothing as well. And on the other side, they just replaced it with a brand new currency. In fact, that was one of the problems as well that they tried to do. They got rid of the original marks, turned them into the Nazi regime, turned them into Reichsmarks, which of course hyperinflated away to nothing. And then of course we had Deutschmarks coming in after the war. It is a fascinating subject, and it's one which I, kind of am a bit loath to talk about, if I'm being honest, because I know there's a lot of very anti-fiat sentiment out there at the moment. But ultimately, fiat currency is the way that the world works, and it will be the way that the world works going long into the future, until we get some, there's a lot of talk about centralized digital currencies from the various big governments around the world, essentially government-backed cryptocurrencies. And I don't know enough about those really to pass judgment on them, but I do feel, just look at these wonderful old notes. Some of these are over 100 years old. Have to be very careful with them, but they don't make them like they used to. This is, I think, an old Russian banknote, I want to say. I could be completely wrong with that, or Greek, I think. So yeah, the point is that fiat currency works, and it has worked for the last couple of 100 years. Just look at that magical artwork on the back there. And ultimately, I think that the fiat currencies are here to stay for a while. The wonders of digital currencies, the wonders of digital kind of cryptocurrencies and government-backed cryptocurrencies, they will, of course, come in over time. And to a certain extent, we're already kind of there in the sense that a lot of people were saying that decentralization of these fiat currencies into a single government-backed cryptocurrency will give all the government all the information that you would ever want. Yes, but they really pretty much have that right now, unless you've got actual physical cash, which I do believe is a good thing to have some of at all times. But unless you've got a large amount of physical cash that you just walk around and buy everything with, the government's going to pretty much know all of your spending anyway, from debit card transactions, from banks transfers. If they needed to, I'm sure they'd be able to find all of that information very quickly and very easily that they might want. So, it's kind of like we're there already, and it just doesn't make much of a difference in my mind. But, each to their own as to what you might want to think. But I do feel that fiat currencies will be here to stay, and it will be a case that you have simply this stuff here, the gold and silver, will be that exchange mechanism. And if you do have the dollar going to zero, it's important to have some gold and silver in your portfolio, so that if the government, and this is why confiscation of currencies and confiscation of gold, is going to be a kind of a good thing in that scenario, because if the hyperinflation of the dollar does happen, simply having 100 ounces of silver is not going to save you particularly very well. It'll get you through a little patch, but it will not give you enough money to set up for life. You will be forced either by yourself to sell your silver, or if in the case of gold, you get situations where governments want to reacquire gold to go back on the gold standard, they will forcibly allow you, or they will forcibly get you to sell them your gold, and you will then get money back. You'll get that replacement fiat currency back. It's happened in the past. It could happen again in the future. It's happening in places like Turkey right now, where gold shops, jewelry makers are being told not to sell any gold because it is earmarked for the government. It's most certain that gold and silver play a role into the future of retaining value, retaining wealth, and the means by which you can actually still survive in those scenarios. But to honestly believe that just simply having 100 ounces of silver, or 1,000 ounces of silver even, is going to make you a millionaire in an apocalyptic scenario is not true. An ounce of silver is still an ounce of silver, and it's a really important thing to remember. Just because the value of this stuff relative to fiat currencies might hyperinflate and go up to huge numbers, that does not mean that this stuff is more inherently valuable than it was the day before. It will still buy you an equivalent amount of stuff at the other end of this process. Just simply owning silver is not going to increase your wealth, it's going to retain your wealth. And that is something that you cannot say is true for fiat currencies. They inflate away over time, they majorly lose value over time, and that is one of the things that people don't like about it, myself included, and why I will continue to stack gold and silver into the future. More gold than silver for me, but hey, that's the way that I go. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and this overview of this bit of history in this folder, the wonderful bits of history all here. Let me know which banknote is your favourite of all of these. They're just part of my wonderful old school collection. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, you know what to do. Share it around on social media. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.